Welcome to Between Two Clinicians, the podcast that gives you a backstage pass into the mind of two therapists. I'm Talia.
I'm Adam Luke. We've spent years helping others navigate the complexities of their minds and relationships.
In this podcast, we're flipping the script, and we're sharing our own unfiltered insights. No topic is off limits, and no issue too taboo. We're ready to tackle the tough stuff with honesty and empathy. Let's dive in.
Well, hello.
Well, hello. It's good to see you.
As always, it's great to see you.
It's been a little while. Now I feel like we get off track, on track, but I was out for a fun reason last time. I actually took one of my first nights off of parenting and went to a concert, which was so much fun. Yeah, it already just happened to line up.
You were a human being? You were an adult?
I truly, when I walked out, I was with one of my girlfriends. We were at a country concert. And I walked out in like my cute little outfit with the boots. And I was like, if I don't find a husband, with no intention of wanting to get married, but I was like, if I don't find a husband, she's like, you look so hot. I was like, thank you. So yes, I feel like I needed that. So thanks for being flexible, listeners. It might not impact you at all, actually, because I think our producer fixed it on the back end, but I missed you. So it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. And I'm glad that you were able to go out there and sort of like, it's almost like you have to put yourself on like the relational Zillow, right? Like you just want to be like maybe coming to market.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Yeah. I'm on the market. I'm marketable. But I'm like changing my prices. Like I don't want to get off the market. That's the whole thing. I'm very much so enjoying being single. So yeah. It's good. And it helps with today's topic. Ironically, I do not think anyone from that part of my life listens to this on his end, thankfully. So I feel comfortable sharing more in this episode. But today we're going to be talking about a concept called parallel parenting, not co-parenting, when collaboration isn't safe or possible. And my favorite thing that I've learned going through the court system is when the legal paperwork puts per mutual agreement of the parties, couple will agree, or like parents will agree, parents will mutually agree.
Will they? Will they though?
So if we could have done that, do you think we'd be getting divorced? Do you think we'd be like auctioning off time with our child in exchange for money, like it's human trafficking? Like, no, we wouldn't be doing that if there was mutual agreement of the parties, right? So there's this concept, and I've learned firsthand the mental load, the stress, all of that scheduling, planning, it doesn't stop. It does not stop once you split up. So if you're listening to this like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get divorced because then put that pipe dream down, because it's not going to happen. It rarely happens that way. And it's only after you have probably a very thorough parenting plan. Highly recommend having everything laid out so there's nothing left to per mutual agreement, again, because if that could have happened, you would have done it by now. And parallel parenting is best when you cannot collaborate at all with the other parent. Either you're too high conflict or too tense about it or too controlling about it, and you don't understand that you're going to lose a lot of control in the situation. Neither of you are going to get everything you want, or the recipient of you trying to co-parent either takes advantage of it, lets you make all the decisions, but then stops you or blocks you just for sport, almost it feels like in conflict, or they just don't know how to you have to love your kids more than you hate your ex is kind of the goal, or really dislike your ex. So if you can't do that, then you have to parallel. Yeah, you have to parallel parent, and you have to always keep the kids first. And if you're not able to do that, parallel parenting is definitely for you. And you might be the one, if you are able to do that, to make all the rules. There's no retribution in divorce court. And since they got rid of a fault divorce, you don't get anything for being the cheater. You don't get anything for not being the cheater, or why ever your marriage split up, or whoever you're trying to do custody with split up, why you're not together. There is no bonus for being the more moral parent. Quite unfortunately, I think it should be revamped, and it should be treated like criminal court. Like, prove to me. You're guilty until you're proven innocent. Why should you have 50-50? Like, it's not going to work that way, because family court's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But
true.
Yeah. Today,
we're supposed to be innocent till proven guilty, but I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like it should be the opposite for this. Show me why this is a good idea. Who's your pediatrician's name? What's your child's shoe size? All of the questions that a true 50-50 parent and an involved parent would know. But that's the next chapter I think a lot of people don't think they're going to end up reading or having be written about them. True. Is if your partner was not involved in the co-parenting while you were still co-parents, meaning parents in a relationship together, it likely will not change. But nobody fights for 50-50 harder than the guy that you had to ask to watch the baby for 10 to 15 minutes to shower. So buckle up for that one too, because you probably will end up parallel parenting, which is, I don't know about your life, you don't know about my life. The parenting plan is our Bible or decree that we follow, and we might chat through an app, but if it's too high, or texting, but if it's too high conflict, you'll probably be better off using an app, and it's way less documentation. So that's like the partial overview today, and I'm going to pass the mic to you, because fortunately you do not have experience personally with this. So I would love to hear your side of this.
Yeah, I can't speak to it personally, just professionally. I mean, I work with a lot of co-parents. And then I've worked with a lot of individuals that we've had to move into the spot of parallel parenting, because there just becomes it becomes apparent quite quickly that there's not a desire to actually collaborate.
When you work with couples who have to move into parallel parenting from co-parenting, what are like the top 2 or 3 archetypes or like reasons why you see that?
I think you nailed it with like your intro of, there becomes this process where both parents show up and they're trying to make their case on which one's the shittier parent. And so they're truly locked in this battle of trying to, like, no, this person's terrible. I have no doubt that in your marriage, maybe that person was terrible in your marriage, right? But you guys aren't the same people that said I do. You're not even the same people that initiated the divorce. So
True.
we have to identify that like change is happening, and how are we going to navigate that? And some people get stuck in the like, no, this person needs to be carrying around their scarlet letter. And to your point, it is interesting that I think when divorce happens, because it is such a like a fracturing moment in a person's timeline, that divorce wakes up certain people that were either complacent or willing to play the villain in certain people's lives, and recognizing like, oh crap, the court could actually like make it so I don't have joint
anything really.
joint anything, or that like I could lose custody. And then all of a sudden people become extremely vulnerable because they recognize, if I don't have custody of my kids, people aren't going to immediately be endeared to the fact that my wife was a bitch, right? Like, so this is
kind of collapses in on itself.
Yeah, weird. So she's a terrible person, but the courts decided that she needed to have
all legal and physical.
That's interesting how that works, right?
Wild, yeah.
So like when we first start in co-parenting stuff, because most of the time I get this from individuals who are either court directed, or they have individual therapists that say, hey, these people need to have essentially a co-parenting therapist. It's a lot like couples, but we're not working on the relationship, we're working on the parenting. Right?
Correct. Yes.
And so the next part is, okay, so we get away from painting the silhouette of the terrible person I was married to, and now we move into the I don't want to share roles. And this happens a lot with like whoever the primary parent ended up being during the relationship. They then get stuck in this micromanagement position of, well, what does it actually look like when we start to have like a more equitable situation in parenting? And I use that word because that's what the court is looking for. The court wants 50-50. They want shared roles and shared experiences, and no one parent should be saddled with the entirety of raising these children, right? But at the same time, what ends up happening is you'll have that primary parent move into a position of like, well, I don't want this person to become any different than how I've imagined them. And so they don't need to have access to their kids. I don't want my kids around, because it's more of like an active assassination attempt of their character versus well, don't you want to be free? Like I say this, and I know I'm going to catch a lot of slack, but I say this to a lot of women when I move into the co-parenting side is like, don't you actually want to have somewhat of a life? Like you are fighting.
Depends on the time or the age of your children as to when you ask that, Adam.
Well,
Depends.
I actually don't think that's true. You know,
You don't.
that we could go into deeper thoughts of like, so sure, infants, toddlers, um, you know, there's plenty of times I have to go tell my wife to go take a hike, right? Because like you're losing perspective, you're
Go be a
burning
self.
out. Like
Yes.
you need to take and do some self-care. Please disappear for a couple hours, let me take care of the kids. Even if
Yes.
women are navigating a divorce in that process and their ex has the potential to
Mhm.
actually be a responsible individual, we need to utilize that. Like,
If they're a co-parent, yes. If they're unsafe or irresponsible enough where it
yeah,
shifts into parallel parenting and you're actually parenting them at the same time you're parenting the kids you're having a custody battle or custody agreement over, that is where it's like, but I literally don't know that my kid's going to come back in one piece or alive. And again, this is where letting go of having
mhm,
full control, neither of you will have full control. So just
correct.
let that settle in. It's a harsh reality and a tough truth to swallow, but it
Mhm.
is the truth. And fighting it doesn't make it less real, to your point,
It
if they
doesn't make
want
it,
that.
and it also
Yes.
doesn't allow you to be the mother that you want to be if you're
Oh,
burning all
yeah.
this energy and stuff that's like literally
Yes.
hitting your head against a brick wall. So, like,
Yes. We all
absolutely, if
find
your child is in danger, do everything within your power to make sure that your child is safe.
yes.
I think sometimes we get there, we almost make it really depends on the relationship and how it all ended and what was experienced during the relationship. But I don't think that's actually a destination that most relationships, when they go separate, need to
True.
enter into.
Very
But we
true.
can make this a such a virtue proposition of like, what I'm
Mhm.
doing is righteous and it's noble.
Right.
And at what point are you actually like making yourself a martyr in this process? Like
Yeah.
I tell this to every person that I work with that's like the original primary parent, is my worry and concern is how do we actually let you live a lifetime? Because
Hmm.
if you end up having a stroke or a heart attack at 30 or
Right.
40 or
Right.
50 because you were so overwhelmed about all these, who the hell parents your kid then?
Right.
Like, we actually have to talk about how we give you longevity.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's a tough situation. There's also a I tell a lot of parents in this position, we fight the righteous fight and then we rest in whatever comes out of it because courts
Hmm.
are not perfect by any mean. So there's times where absolutely you sit there and go, man, the court should have like moved into a parallel parenting thought process. We're in
They
this
hate that.
co-parenting
Yeah.
we're in this co-parenting situation. We can see the writing on the wall. We see someone who's terribly inconsistent or really has
Hmm.
no desire. They're
Yeah.
just fighting because they want to say that they have
Yeah.
shared custody. And
Yep.
in reality, as
Exactly.
soon as the court gavel hits the freaking desk, they're
Yep.
going to disappear. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how many times we've seen that. But at the
Hmm.
same time, we have to go with whatever the parenting plan is, whatever happens. Okay, now we get to rest into it. What are we going to do? Because if
Right.
you make that, they make your parenting plan the next adversary for you to battle, this is really quickly how we ended up with severely jaded parents that then end up pushing away the kid that needs them the most.
Right. That's the whole core of this is the child. Even if the court does not uphold this ideal as much as any reasonable parent, which is such a loose definition, um, I will refrain from going on that tangent. When when you think about the best interest of the child, which is every state has its own laws on that and its own
hmm
guidelines, your best interest is going to like the way you view like what's in the child's best interest might differ from your partner and will likely significantly
mm
differ from the bare minimum that the court, the government, CPS even views that. So again, painful reality. Oh, oh, that's so as long as they didn't die. Okay, all right, good to know. Then the parallel parenting also becomes, we have a very Loctite parenting plan. We've thought of everything, thought through everything. Ideally, no major modifications are needed, because one of the trainings that I often recommend, she calls it the parenting plan taking you from diapers to diplomas. Like, you think of everything and write it out. As much as you have to fight, your lawyer's job, if you're not representing yourself, your lawyer's job is to get your case through the legal system. They're not there to emotionally coach you. They're not there to write your parenting plan for you. Like, you have to be your best advocate for your child, and your child needs you to advocate for them, because the court, ironically, in any other setting, right, we would not let a 14-year-old make life decisions for themselves. But in family court, who do you want to live with? Again, the system is very backwards in some ways. You have to think through this as the parent. And if you are not able to get or foster a sense of this agreement in the other parent around your child or children that you share, you essentially have to spearhead. Here's the plan. Here's why. Good luck arguing. It's not in the best interest of the child. Like, write a better thing then. I'll put this in there. And if you don't agree, why is it not in their best interest, is the argument to get it taken out. That's how I help parents in that sense. Usually they come to somewhat of a agreement. It doesn't mean they get everything they want, right? Compromise isn't always, I get exactly what I want and you get what you want. It's, we'll live with this. We can live with this is the goal. And you can live peaceful, separate homes, where ideally, when rubber meets the road and you really need to, you can tolerate each other and get along for the sake of what is for the best interest of the child. It's easier in the beginning, if you have very high conflict, to start out with parallel parenting. And as the boundaries are enforced and rigid, and you get a groove going and you have a system in place, then, unless there's super high conflict, then you could be a bit lax. But I always recommend doing it as a swap or a mutual trade, rather than, I need to look nice, so I'll just do everything that they want and bend over backwards, and they would never do the same for you. You don't want to be a doormat, but you also don't want to be seen as someone who's so rigid. Your desire to avoid conflict makes you so inflexible, you're actually creating conflict. There's a balance to strike for both parents in parallel parenting specifically.
The best way I've ever had it described to me is that the goal here is where both parties walk away a little uncomfortable. No one likes to hear that. That's exactly what it is, where it's like, no one person got 100% what they wanted.
No.
But both of us were able to walk away with something that was constructive.
And can work.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, the other aspect here is, I think that a lot of times that primary parent will jump into a position of, during the whole marriage, this primary parent was also the PR rep for the poor parent. And so this is where it's amazing to watch, like, the Stockholm syndrome step out here. Because I will, again, if you haven't picked it up yet, I work with a lot of women that navigate co-parenting and husbands or significant others that don't want to go through the process with them. And what's interesting is, as we set out those goals on what do we want it to look like, there is such a focus on, oh, well, but I don't want him to be seen as a bad father. Like, I don't think that that's your job.
Let it go.
Let it go. Look at you, Elsa. Let it go.
If you get in their way, right? If you rescue them from whatever their actual parenthood or ideals are, it's not helping anyone. It's certainly not helping your kids, because you can't be there to rescue them.
Well, your kids then see you as being a bullshitter. This is the problem. Is like, if you continue.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, no, if you separate and then you're trying to run PR with your father, oh, he's your father, you should take the call. Oh, he's your father. Well, like, once you start moving to that, then the kids recognize how you're essentially an accomplice.
Yes, I agree with that. I do not recommend being what the analysts that I see for co-parenting, we see, whatever. At least I show up every week. The analyst calls it a hyperbolic reactive formation, meaning, in lieu of it being, I don't like this person, I'm going to be over the moon about them as like a corrective, like, oh, your mom's the best, you're that. You don't have to do that, but you have to at least minimally endorse to avoid claims of parental alienation, is the phrase I will leave some of you with today. It doesn't mean you have to be over the moon and besties. It means you have to at least provide an opportunity for them to have a relationship, and it's up to the adult to foster that kind of relationship. So this doesn't mean you going out of your way, sending a bunch of pictures, initiating FaceTime calls, inviting them to everything. That's not what I'm saying. If they're asking, I'd like a call, you can still have boundaries around that and be like, okay, not at bedtime, but we're available at 3:00. Would that work? Right? There's a collaboration there. So you're endorsing the relationship, but you're not then going to be like, no, your dad's the best or your mom's the best. And the kid's like, no, they're not. I'm telling you this. And you're getting the Stockholm syndrome of, but I have to you're not in a happy, intact family. Sorry to say, but again, the sooner you realize it and the more you go, my only job is to facilitate, depending on their age, the definition of facilitate them having an opportunity to have a relationship and knowing at some point it could be positive. That'd be awesome. But if they eventually realize what you realized about the person you're not with anymore, your ex, who is their parent, that let the chips fall where they may. It's not our job to make them realize that early as the kids. And it's also our job to, if we see the signs and they're coming to us, try to buffer as much as we can within the legal limits. That's the other piece too. We don't want to overcorrect because then you will get claims, which it's a whole made up term by Richard Gardner to keep abusers in the parents' lot. It's a whole thing, but parental alienation is like a debunked science, but unfortunately the court system still goes based off of that. And it's not often, to your point of don't we want to break, it's not often that I would withhold, not me as Talia, but like it's not often a mother would withhold or a parent would withhold without cause. There are parents who do it. I want to be very clear, but in the parallel parenting specifically, if it's devolved to that, or the relationship devolved to the point where you're already starting off with parallel parenting, clearly there's some safety or some misattunement factor that one parent is clocking that the other one isn't. And to not view the role of what a parent should or shouldn't do the same is one of the hardest parts, which is why parallel parenting can make your own life more peaceful.
Absolutely.
I don't have a say in what goes on over there aside from what's in the parenting plan, which are reasonable requests that the other person can contribute to that, again, should be, often is common sense, but they don't have a say, right? Daily decisions. What creates a daily decision? Having that clearly laid out in your parenting plan for parallel parenting. So you're not seen as nitpicking or you're not panicked to all heck because you don't know what's going on over there. And I will share, as somebody who has done this since way too young, unfortunately for my kiddo, the ease is not the best word, but like the ease in which you can navigate this does get better. Like it gets easier when they are older, when they are more verbal, when you can actually interact with them in different ways. So it's so difficult to leave with a baby and a toddler. I can tell you firsthand. As my child has gotten older, it's gotten a bit easier because there's also very strict and rigid boundaries that are taking place of what I provided when we were all together. Now the document speaks for me, and that's your choice. Well, I hope you are the kind of parent that I would like for her, but if you're not, I can't stop you. Hey there, listeners. Are you tired of settling for less than you deserve in your relationships? Do you ever feel like you're not being seen, heard, or valued the way that you want? Or maybe you've been wondering why you keep attracting the same kinds of people into your life, or why certain patterns seem to repeat themselves in your relationships. The answer might be deeper than you think, and you can find it in my new course. Rewire Your Relationships is a transformative course designed to help you stop settling for less than you deserve and start embodying your most confident, assertive, and authentic self in your relationships. You'll explore how your early experiences and parental influences have shaped your views on love, dating, and self-worth. This isn't just about tips and tricks for dating. It's about understanding the core beliefs that drive relationships that you attract. You'll learn how to break free from those old patterns and start creating the kind of connections that truly reflect who you are. Imagine stepping into a relationship with clarity and confidence, knowing you're attracting people who value and respect you for who you really are, your deeply authentic self. The Rewire Your Relationship course gives you the tools to rewrite your relationship story, one where you're no longer settling, but thriving. Visit taliabombola.com/rewireyourrelationships or check the link in the show notes for more.
I know this is going to trigger some people, but let the parenting plan be the bad guy. Okay.
Oh, 100. It makes it so much easier. Like, that's the plan. We signed it.
But then we have to pay attention to like our own bullshit that we bring into it.
Totally.
Right? So like I tell my clients, like, hey, as adults, yeah, for the rest of our lives, we're going to have to own that we created a relationship with someone that wasn't sustainable. We brought children into this world, and that unfortunately, these children have to follow a contract that was established because of our behaviors. Right? It's not
Very
shaming,
true.
it's not
No, that's
guilting,
factual.
but
That is fact.
we're setting the table here. The
Yep.
reason being is because now the way that you interact with your children will be different. The things that I watch people get in trouble with is
Yep.
when that child says, I don't want to go with dad and it is dad's time, or I don't want to go with mom and it's mom's time.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, that recruiting starts. Well, they're your mother, they're your father. Oh, well, he
Mhm.
cares and he loves you. And these, well, we don't need to go down that road of shaming and manipulating emotions.
Right.
It's the hard part of like, I hear you, baby. It's your father's weekend. It's your mom's
Mhm.
Wednesday night. Like, I hear you, but it's temporary. You're going to be back
Mhm.
home. We're going to be able to do this. Instead of you starting to articulate things that you can't actually follow through on, right?
Mhm.
Because that's where people, again, as adults, we're so uncomfortable with the emotions that we're experienced by watching our child navigate conflict that then we
Mhm.
start saying things that aren't actually things we can back up.
Yes, you don't want to give false promises. And one of
Correct.
my favorite child therapists, she sees the kids who are the byproduct of parents splitting up.
Mm-hmm.
The wording that she suggests is all child centered. So it's like it's your
Mm,
time with dad versus it's your dad's
yeah,
time. Even that small switch can help kids go, oh, it is my time, because as they get older and they do
absolutely.
have more choice and agency, they can choose to do with it. Unfortunately, it's ordered, right?
Of
If
course.
you went through the system, if you went through the family court system, it's a court order. I don't advise violating it willy nilly or at all,
Mhm.
really, without proper preparation of what's to come. If you do, like,
Yeah, if you
if you choose
lose
to
your
go
you
with
being a
the other
resource.
side, yeah, you know what you're up against if you chose to, and have a good defense for it if you need to, and being able to encourage, right?
Mhm.
Not the hyperbolic reactive formation, and it's going to be this many sleeps, right? Using specific calendars,
Mhm.
using specific that, and it's, I think, draining as a co-parent or a parallel parent when you are still shouldering all of the mental load and you all
Mm.
are still doing all of the work. What helps get me through that is understanding I am far more organized. I always will be, and that's not a knock on her dad. That's just how I am as a person. It's separate. That I would say that about a
Correct.
lot of, like, um even in my job, my other jobs that I have,
Mhm.
I'm the internal operations manager. You know how many spreadsheets I've created? And like people joke with me, I'm like, don't mess with my spreadsheets. That is a core trait I have, that I possess, that I like to utilize. I don't even see it. Maybe like one night a month I get resentful, but like on the overall, I see it as something that helps this whole ecosystem of our new dynamic
Mm.
function properly. It makes sure things don't fall through the cracks, and it also enforces certain boundaries because there has been an improvement of requests 1 or 2 months out versus the night before. So as long as I hold firm with those boundaries and I'm the more organized parent, yes, I am resentful. I will still always carry the mental
Mm.
load of the work to not change that. However, even if we were in the partnership, I still would have had that role, and it's all for her. None of this has to do with,
Mm.
I like transcend this many months, almost 2 years out.
Yeah.
It's not about us anymore. It's about what makes her life easier. So if I'm not his
Mm.
secretary, but if managing the shared calendar is what keeps everybody happy, copacetic, having their jobs, having the days they can work, childcare covered, etc., I will fall on that knife. And it's, again, something that will get easier as the time goes on. It's
Mhm.
not something I prefer to do, but I also don't. I worked with a lot of moms who are like, I shouldn't have to do that for him.
Mm.
You're not doing it for him. Nothing
Correct.
about this has to do with him. Make sure, like, mentally act like he's passed away. This is nothing to do with him. It's everything to do with your kids. And anytime you get that feeling of it's not fair, guess what? Life's not fair. It will not be fair. And again, divorce does not shift the mental load for
Correct.
them to all of a sudden be super dad. As much as it might look like that, they will pick up some of the slack because they have no choice, but they also might recruit female family members to take your place. That can happen too. That would have happened regardless. That was going to happen whether you were
Mhm.
in the relationship or not, and you were out with your friends for the day and the mom or the sister took over. Letting go of that control helps shift into either co-parenting
Mhm.
or parallel parenting. You will not have the life that you would have in the relationship. And sometimes that's a blessing. Sometimes, like, the fact that I'm even mentally clear enough to speak like this is because I'm not in it anymore. And it doesn't mean I don't miss the fantasy version. I would love it for it to be happy and heck, there's even, again, I will probably eat crow for this later. There are a few moments, few and far between at this point, where I'm like, this, if it was like this continually, I could live with this. I could make this work. And those moments sometimes are like, wow, why couldn't we have just gotten along if it goes this well? Because you have to think about all the nights that you didn't have the help, you have to go back to what reality was and let that live with, that was a great day, or parallel parenting, let it live. Let it live as a good moment or a good hour or a good exchange or a good interaction, not hoping like, oh my gosh, we have all those, but I hope we have more. It's like, I appreciated that. Thank you very much for that. And just moving forward, again, all for the best interest of the child. If they can grow up, I told my parents this, and then I'll shut up and take my turn off. But I told my parents this last night. We were having dinner because the questions are starting to come from my daughter a little bit at her age. And I kind of framed it, I'm going to run it by the co-parenting therapist, but I kind of framed it as like, every kid, when they view their parents, ideally has, the parents are friends, the parents are romantic partners, and the parents are co-parents at the end of the day, even if you're together. Some kids only get 1 out of 3, some kids get 2 out of 3, some kids get 3 out of 3. True. And sometimes best for the kids if they're co-parents, and we're not saying besties, cordial, tolerant, right? But if you can only be co or parallel parents, even that's better than a total rupture. And never badmouth the other parent. If they are going to end up expressing the traits you left them for, you don't need to preempt that for your child. They will discover it eventually. The Sky is Red is a great book for that. And now I will pass the mic to you.
No, I think you did a good job of sort of like lining it up on like what's the next steps. And this is that, like, allowing the parenting plan to protect your mental health and protect your emotional health and how you can be present. Because as a primary parent in a falling apart relationship, you're surrounded. There's chaos all around you. There's always a new dumpster fire. And your kids may have gotten used to experiencing you as a chaotic individual because all you've been able to do is put out fires when they burst out. And this is where like you get to allow yourself to now be experienced different and experience the way that you want to be. Maybe you're not going to be as frazzled. You're not going to be as rushed. So you can actually invite sanctuary and peace into the home you create for yourself for your kids. And this is an important process. But like you were saying, so many people don't want to trust the parenting plan. I understand parenting plans also, I've told people, like, I loved your thought process from, diapers to diplomas. That's a best kit. Like, that's a best case scenario. Most likely, most end up going back to court once or twice. It just ends up happening. So yes. like that's the other thing is like, don't get locked up in the perfectionism of the parenting plan. We just want something that gives us guardrails that we could say, okay, well, we're not looking at constantly going back to court every 3 years. This is something that we could follow as we experience each other right now. This then allows you to move into, there's so many other things that we need to be throwing your creativity at. And when your creativity is just locked up on the parenting plan, life becomes a very dark place. A parenting plan can be seen as just like the perfect source of scarcity because it feels like we're constantly losing something. We're constantly in a position of not having everything that we need. I have to capitulate in these certain things. Like, this is not a process where you want to stay rooted. You want to do in your best, like what is in your best interest, whatever is in the kid's best interest. And then you want to move on in that. So also a lot of times we have to recognize that kids are not perfect either. So kids enjoy, like, it is the Ricky Bobby scene where they say 2 Christmases, like they are locked in on like, oh, wait a second, we can play each other against each other. And guess what? The inattentive parent does look like the Willy Wonka ticket at the beginning of this thing because they're amazing. I don't get held accountable for anything. Everything is ice cream night. Everything is gourmet. And I try to encourage my clients, don't fall into the trap, because there's also this pattern of your previous significant other, your now ex, is hooked into this process where how are they going to be able to sustain it? How do you continue to have Disneyland after Disneyland after Disneyland experience? And there's going to come a part of time, like, and most people don't trust me in this, but I swear over 10 years doing this, it pops out. There comes a time where the kids are going to say, we don't want the gourmet. I don't want to go to
They
motocross
want
tickets. I
boundaries.
don't
They
want to go to bed.
want to go home.
Well,
I just want to stay home one night. Can we please not go to this extravagant thing? Yes.
And because they actually say, Dad, I want you. Mom, I want
I want the
you.
connection with my parent.
And that person then sits back and goes, oh, well, that's not what I want. I can't give you that. So I'll give you money and I'll give you things and I'll give you material.
Exactly.
So I sit with a lot of individuals that will say like, oh, my ex makes more money, or they have more finances, or they have all these things that they can wield against me. And it's like, yeah, but they have the one thing that they can't buy. The one thing that they can't buy is what you have, which is emotional intelligence and emotional intimacy with your children. Mm-hmm. So, like, don't dismiss that. But so many people are like, oh no, it's all these other things. Like, and yet you're right. Every state is different. But I will also say, most states have a provision that when that kid hits 13 years old, and I don't understand what the difference between a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, but here is where we're at. They hit the magic number of 13, and a lot of times, a lot of these parenting plans get flipped upside down. Why? Because one parent uses it as a resource of navigating a disgruntled ex. Yeah. The other one uses it as a weapon towards the kids.
Correct.
Right? Like, and a lot of times that's where I'm telling parents, please don't step in and be PR. When you hear that other person use the parenting plan as a weapon, let them step in it. But when the kids are over at your house, guess what? You're going to be able to love them unconditionally. You're going to be able to do everything they need to feel safe and secure. But yeah, let dad or mom scream that it's their time. Let them say, like, let them unfortunately send the text messages that aren't kind text messages, right? Like, why? Because you need to stop being the buffer. And you need to start trusting your children to be able to establish and recognize, I don't actually feel like that person's safe.
Yes, and to be able to be a safe parent and a safe person for them meaning the children, to tell the truth to. Stopping being the buffer was one of the hardest things I had to go through, especially because my daughter was an infant. So the whole PR, no one leaves with a baby if it's not easy, right? Like, that has to be pretty tough to leave with a baby if that's the better option than staying. So then to try to not buffer that is like, I think I'm going to die. And it's primal, it's evolutionary, first 3 years of life, right? Like, if you're listening to this and you're splitting or did split at a different stage of life, this specific phrase that is about to leave my mouth might not be for you directly, but it felt like a limb was being cut off. And I'm not saying most parents don't feel like that in co-parenting, but like a defenseless infant leaving for a visit is much different than a 10-year-old, still your kid, much different than a 10-year-old who has majority of the time at school with their friends, etc. So my heart goes out to those parents who are still struggling to not be the buffer. We cannot, even if we stayed with the person, we cannot force them to be someone else. Correct. We cannot make them be who we want them to be. The best chance we have is, I'm not going to stay and model an unhealthy romantic partnership or a friendship where I'm being treated poorly or I'm being disrespected and used. There are things that make more sense for kids when their parents co-parent. Oh, they don't get along sometimes. That makes sense. They're not together. Oh, we have to do things separately because in-laws this or that. That makes sense. They're not together. So the sooner that, not rushing, the sooner you can move into, this is not working anymore, we need to move into co-parenting or parallel parenting. Starting with parallel parenting, start with rigid boundaries. You can work towards more mutual agreement after you establish, here's my house, here's your house. I'm not going to tell you what rules to do aside from what we've signed. And that's where spending, I think I've probably spent over 100 hours personally on this parenting plan. It's like a neuroses at this point, because I know everything that's in it, and I've studied it, and I've made it my life's mission that once this is done, I don't really actually have to talk to you again if I don't want to, because I thought of everything all the way to her graduation, including health insurance past when she graduates and I'm not saying everything was allowed. The lawyer was like, we can't really put this, we can't require that. And I said, well, you know what? F it. Let's put it in and see if the judge signs for it. What's the worst they could say? No, and it gets taken out to what I'm still okay with. Like, I take a different tack than what you mentioned earlier, but I'm not going to be this way about the plan for the rest of her life. It's just now because I wasn't willing to sign anything that was loose 4 pages, mutual. No, holidays need specific days and times. What are you going to do about swaps? What about if one of the holiday schedules lands you with 3 weekends in a row? Like, there's so many things you have to think of that other parent, hear this, if you are in a happy or a committed, like, dual relationship or like mutual relationship with the person you have a kid with, you get to make all these decisions as they come the next 15 to 20 years. Co-parents do not get that luxury. We have to, or can benefit from, deciding on all of those when your kids are split up. It forces you to think about the future, which is where conflict can come up, because the overfunctioning, mental load carrying primary parent was already thinking about that, and the other one was just bopping along, so they seem like the nag, because they're like, no, we need to think about this. Oh, we'll just figure it out. No, you won't. You know how much figuring it out costs in court for a modification? I don't want a lawyer the rest of my life. I'll have one if I need it, but I don't want to do this. I don't want to see you again. I want to do so well with this plan. It's locked tight, and we just reference it back and maybe one modification. But hopefully by the time that we need that, we can agree out of court. That's the other piece. If you have it so laid out and you both are noticing, we agreed on this, but it's not working. If you have the provision in there, we can make a change, mutually agreed, as long as it's in writing and signed off or go to mediation. That's something to include also. It doesn't have to be contentious, even if you're parallel parenting.
Correct.
Parallel parenting to keep your peace. It's not to be contentious or to uphold conflict or hate the other parent. I'm not with you. I don't want to know what you're doing with your life. I wish you the best of luck. Good luck convincing somebody else you'll be a better, good luck on all of that. I don't want to know about it. And I don't want you to know about my life. I want my privacy. Everything has to be about the child. That has to be at the center. And that needs to sometimes be a daily reminder for people. It's about your kid. It's not about you. You have to put your stuff aside towards that person, even if they did unspeakable things to you that betrayed you on levels you never thought existed. Like I've said before, he watched me get cut open 7 layers of my skin and still hurt me worse than that. I still have to co-parent with him. People have to co-parent from jail. It's a life sentence that you get to live outside of prison from, but it's a life sentence till your kid's 18. Make it easier on yourself by letting the plan speak for itself, and don't get overly involved in what they're doing, who they're with. That's not my purview. Unless it hurts my kid, I don't care. I really don't care.
Because you don't want to be unnecessarily tethered to this individual in other ways.
I left you for a reason.
Exactly.
I don't want to be tethered to you.
And so then we have to, like, to your point, and I just think other people don't hear it the same way.
Yeah.
Then stop sort of mining or cultivating the stuff that you don't need to know about.
Yeah.
Like let them do their thing. Absolutely. Pay attention to, like, is a kid safe? Is a kid not safe?
Yes.
Like, even like that's where a lot of people go, okay, so parallel parenting means that I lose any ability to check up on the other side. No, if your kid shares with you something that you think is concerning, like they're not getting fed, or they're hungry, or they're not getting like basic needs met, or there's strange people in the house, you still get to ask questions. And I always say, like, the benefit there is, instead of looking to interrogate, the best position is just being able to alert the other that I'm aware of these issues.
Hey, I saw this, what's going on? Rather than like, why did you do that? Yeah, you don't go with like, hey, I noticed this. Do you notice this too?
The reason being is, not only will curiosity get you farther in the conversation, but sometimes all that is needed is the checkup.
Yeah.
You know, because so often then we get back into this is a person that I used to fight with and we used to go tooth and nail at. And so we're really good at that. No. Don't go there. Go to something different. Because just like every parenting plan set up, you do have the ability to challenge it. If you find that the danger is significant, that there needs to be adjustment, then go for it. But the parallel parenting is also allowing your children to experience their parent, their other parent, in the complete minus PR, here we go.
Yeah.
Because trust me, kids are extremely smart. We like to act like, in many ways, like, oh no, there's so much shepherding. Yes, we want to keep them away from certain experiences in an effort to protect their innocence. But absolutely, kids can start to tell who's full of it and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And only if you allow them to have that experience are they then going to be able to feel empowered to make better decisions for themselves.
Yes. And that's the ultimate goal, is they come out seemingly unscathed, decently well-adjusted, have access to the medical and mental health care that they will need. All of us have to heal from our childhoods. Truly. All of us. The silver lining in parallel parenting and being able to navigate, that's our role. That is how I see that person in my life.
Yeah.
Gets easier as time passes, because yes, they're your ex, and in any other situation, you don't have to talk to your ex for the rest of your life, or your natural life. You can just leave them and be like, oh, I ran into them at my high school reunion, right? Like, you get freedom from it.
Yeah.
So you better buckle up, because it's not just the court stuff's till they're 18, but the weddings, the this, the that. I'm not saying if there's, and trust me, I've lived that, like, the safety concerns or everything else. If you have like domestic violence, this is probably not the episode for you. Still parallel parent, but like, you're not going to have that happen. At least if you can just be like, I can be in the same room as the person that I'm parenting that person with, I can tolerate it. That's the ultimate goal. Let your kid safely navigate their relationship with that other parent. Maybe the same things come out, maybe they don't. But all we can do is hope to be that soft landing place for them at the end of the day, not overwhelm them on transition days. And if they need extra help to talk about their feelings about having parents that co-parent, ideally getting them into therapy. That is something that I do think a lot of parents will go back to court over, because one parent's like, no, they're fine, and the other one's like, no, they're not, because they're opening up more to that parent. That's worth going back for a modification. Also, as a closing note, that's a hill I would die on.
Oh, absolutely.
Making a parenting plan. And ultimately, if you two can't agree, leave it up to the provider and leave it up to the school, or if the school makes a referral. So we can do a whole, there could be a whole other
yeah, because we haven't even gotten into like GALs, guardian ad litem's.
Yeah, like there's navigating family court could also be a whole other episode later on, but I'm glad that we did one on parallel parenting specifically. We've talked about co-parenting. You're not as involved, you're not as fluffy. And if you see people on social media who can have a shared birthday and whatever else, that's good for them.
Wonderful.
Maybe the reason they split up is not as adversarial, and there's not as much betrayal, or there's not as much differing levels of psychological immaturity. We never know. Good for them. Doesn't have to be for me. For me, what works now is parallel parenting. Maybe co-parenting will work eventually. That'd be cool. I'd be open to that. But right now, it doesn't. And I have to respect that. And I have to respect my space, and my sanity is best laid out in parallel parenting. And same for my kiddo. She gets a much better version of me, because I have such strong, rigid boundaries, and I feel better about myself. Therefore, I'm a better parent for her. Yeah.
Mic drop. Well, it was wonderful to sit with you all. As always, if we brought up anything that has additional questions, you want us to expand on it further, hit us up. I'm at Wild Ethos Counseling on Instagram. Talia is...
I am at Talia Bombola, and I am starting my Q&As more regularly. So you can tune in. I'm trying.
There you go. Hey, it's not about perfection. It's about progress.
You know what? It's about showing up, even in the messy middle. That's very true.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we'll see you all, hear you all, whatever. You'll hear us. We'll see you next episode.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Between Two Clinicians. We would so appreciate if this episode resonated with you, for you to share it with somebody, and also find your favorite podcast platform and like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. We would love to attract more listeners just like you and have this message be spread to whoever needs it. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.